Good morning, everyone. This is very exciting opportunity for me to be able to share experience and thoughts about new collectivism, creating transdisciplinary solidarity. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm working every day. I'm working as a researcher in Research Center for People-Centered Economy, University of Gajah Mada. But also I am the head of National Board of FIAN Indonesia. It is the human rights organization for right to food and nutrition. What I would like to share here is a story about travelers, those whose ideas and imaginations travel beyond the world that we know of. They are making a road to a post-capitalist society, not only by thinking about it, but by practicing it, experimenting social life beyond capitalism. So this is a story about others, but also probably about near experience, something that we as a group can collaborate in a kind of social experimentations upon our own lives. And it starts with dissatisfaction. When we encounter troubles in life, fired from a job, unable to continue schooling, hard to compete in labor market or school because of qualifications are getting high, and it makes competition unbearable, or sick without access to affordable health service, we may wonder whether another world is possible. So this kind of disappointment about capitalism as the working system of the world has actually started over 3 centuries ago. At least we can mark the thinking of Marx as a starting intellectual point of seeing capitalism as an exploitative system, as he solidly explains in the 3 volumes of Das Kapital. And later on, probably a century after that, other anti-capitalism scholars like John Holloway, who learned from and actively involved in the Zapatista movement in Mexico, expressing his ideas in Crack Capitalism and Changing the World Without Taking Power. These 2 books talking about how or why we should take a stance against capitalism. He believes in the power to say no and act differently. Holloway sees neoliberalism as an attack to humanity and it kills humanity as a project. But he is sure that the protests are not dead, and it can be. Holloway's ideas inspires Massimo De Angelis, a scholar who wrote about the beginning of history and on the commons and transformation to post-capitalism, which he elaborates the working of capitalist enclosure towards commons and how we can fight it by doing a value struggle. Both don't write about how-to books, but they develop a strong arguments about why not to accept capitalism as the only way to make life, and how to act and live collectively and not to accept making profit as the only rational of living is actually possible. So, what is actually the form of anti-capitalist struggle? We may have to explore the idea and practice of commune. A commune has an old and new interpretations and creations. But one thing that continues to thrive is an understanding that the commune is a model of collective or communal society in a modern era, not based on primordialism of Goethe's versions, for instance, but it is inspired by an anti-capitalist movement, and it is based or trying to base the model of society on democratic relations of productions, solidarity-based social relations, free and egalitarian, and do not accept race, gender, sexual-based orientation differentiation that marginalizing groups of people. So basically, it is a very particular and contingent process. Depends on the working of histories, and it is contingent to conditions that enable it to exist. After this after this slide, this talk, we probably it is very sorry. It is it's probably useful to talk about examples, and there are many examples in many forms. For instance, there is an archaic form like obscena and mere, or collective farming in Tsar times of Russia. And there is also modern socialist form, like a Paris Commune in 1971, urban communes in Russian cities post-October Revolution 1917, and also People's Commune in China in 1958 to 1983. And there is a newer form of anti-neoliberalism, like Zapatista movement in Chiapas, Mexico, and also Venezuela communal state in Hugo Chavez's time and beyond. And interestingly, there is also a neoliberal form of commune, which has happened in Vietnam. So some of this will be discussed after this. We start with the Paris Commune because this is the very first evidence of the democratic social society that ever happened in the world. It happened as a product of history. In the Franco-Prussian War, 1870, when Bismarck defeated Louis Bonaparte, a part of city of Paris, which hasn't been occupied by the Prussian, refused to surrender in the 18th of March, 1871. Despite of puppet government ran by Thiers has deployed troops to attack the city dwellers, Paris residents decided to form a commune to defend the city. The National Guard turned their backs from the government and supported the workers to establish a self-government autonomous from the central state. So the communards built 43 workshops and cooperatives, established an integral education system that integrates hands and minds, intellectual and manual works, and they are free to use their creativities and labor. However, this glorious victory of the working class self-governing system has to end on its 72nd day, when the Prussian finally ambushed the city and killed 30,000 of commoners. It stopped the Paris Commune, but unable to halt its historical precedence. The anarchists stood behind the success of Paris Commune establishment. The influence of anarchism can be detected in the formations of cooperative and federation ideas as written by Pierre-Joseph Proudhon in What is Property, and also Mikhail Bakunin, Russia's revolutionary who formed the anarchist collectivists. But as mentioned earlier, Paris Commune has transformed theoretical path from stagism or evolutionary thinking to a contingent end result of social transformation, especially for Marx and the following Marxist thinkers. For instance, on the Paris Commune, Karl Marx wrote that he meets the materiality of class struggle. The greatest social measure of the commune was its own working existence, he said. Its special measure could but betoken the tendency of a government of the people by the people. And Paris Commune then becomes concrete evidence that working class government is possible. Commodity fetishism can be replaced by egalitarian relations of production, and that frees creativities. And commune is not an archaic form, but actually a future form of socialist society. And then the newer version, let's say, of the Paris Commune, we can take an example of Zapatista. Zapatista recognizes themselves as an indigenous peasant movement constituted by the diverse indigenous communities of Chiapas, Mexico. They protested against Mexican state neoliberalism and marked their declaration of war on the 1st January of 1994, when North American Free Trade Area Agreement was signed by the Mexican government. So the Zapatista started the war by taking over 4 towns of Chiapas. After 11 days of violence, where more than 300 died, the Mexican government and the indigenous rebels began negotiations and ceasefire. The Zapatistas' interest and limitation were comprised and formally listed in the San Andrés Peace Accords. 2 years after the Zapatista uprising, the accords declared that the Mexican government give fair treatment to the indigenous peoples of Chiapas. And 26 years later, which is today in 2020, after the initial uprising, Zapatistas have become a leading voice of Mexico's indigenous peoples and built a de facto autonomous system of self-governance in the state of Chiapas. A key principle underlying the Zapatista project is political leaders do not make decisions on behalf of their community as its representative, but rather act as the community's delegates, implementing decisions made in local assemblies, a traditional decision-making mechanism. It may serve as a similar example to commune in Venezuela, which we'll see after this. Other important thing is the functioning of the autonomous government, schools, and clinics, as well as other collective projects, is financed by earnings from cooperatives and land collectives. These are at the center of Zapatista's aspiration to reach economic self-sufficiency from the state and to build an economy based on equitable distribution of resources. While cooperatives and collectives coexist with family land and individual entrepreneurship, participation in collective work on a rotating basis is obligatory. The next example is a form of self-governing unit in democratic socialist country in Venezuela. Venezuela is an example of how commune can be successfully organized at a national scale. So this is actually a dream come true for Paris Commune, but at the national scale. Hugo Chavez, as the 1999 to 2013 president of Venezuela, who made it happen, started the commune federation by revitalizing the existing barrios, or network of communal neighborhood that formed in 1980s. So it is based on something that has already existed. Then Chavez constituted a regulation that recognizes commune as a self-governing unit. With commune law as a national constitution, so he envisioned a communal state as dreamt or as an ideology of Bolivarian revolutionary movement at that time. In Venezuela, during and after Chavez presidential, and continued by President Maduro today, rural and urban rulers come into a political decision by having a direct democracy without representation. Farmers create production commune, build network, and production access based on territorial unit. Urban commune forms communes according to available resources. It may take form as a transportation services that serve the rural jobs and artisans groups who manufacture raw materials. President Maduro, faithful follower of Chavez, made his best effort to promote the communes. In the first year of his government, 50 communes turned into 350 communes, and the communal state once again was the horizon of the Chavismo or Chavez followers. And the demand was to advance quickly as possible. So in 2014, the National Presidential Council of Communes was created. It served as a space for national articulations of communal policies and projects directly with the national government, with regional expressions in each state. All the Venezuelans still have to face resistance and violence coming from the corporate business who tried to cease fire, backed up by the US. But Venezuelan commune don't stop as a historical fact. It keeps going on and alive up to present. So another example is an economic unit in socialist country, but it is actually a unit that enters into the capitalistic system. This form of commune aims for economic means. It's located in Vietnam. The commune is the smallest official administrative unit in Vietnam. And to improve rural development, the country launched an One Commune, One Product program in May 2018. And a year later, Vietnam has about 2,400 products qualified for One Commune, One Product standards, and targets standardizing at least 1,200 more products by this year, including having about 500 new small and medium-sized businesses and cooperatives, making One Commune, One Product, making One OCO program successful. Retailers and e-commerce suppliers have signed consumption contracts to buy the OCOP products, and profits from this product have also been on the increase. The profit, explained by the Ministry of Rural Development, is going to be used for new rural constructions. For the 2016 until 2020, it is expected to build 60% of its rural communes, which qualify as new rural areas by the end of 2020. It also aims to improve the effectiveness of OCOP program, with about 2,400 products of qualified for standard for OCOP globally. So as the end of May, the number of communes meeting the criteria of new rural areas stands at 5,177, or accounting for almost 58% of the total number of communes in Vietnam. So this is not a story about commune as a collective entity, works in the capitalist economy. And lastly, there is also a type of commune lives inside the capitalist country like USA. They call themselves intentional communities, and they conduct a communal lifestyle. So it is a lifestyle not ideologically based, and some of the ideology is ecological, but not on the form of a self-governing unit, but it's more like people choosing different kind of lifestyle. An intentional community refers to any custom-made community. It is an umbrella term that includes eco-villages, co-housing, residential and land trusts, income-sharing communes, student co-ops, spiritual communities, and other projects where people live together on the basis of explicit common values. In the US, there are now about 1,700 intentional communities where more than 100,000 people reside. It grows fast in response to loneliness that haunts most urban Americans' life. So basically, communal living is flourishing because they feel that in a shared space, people engage differently. That is the last example of the commune. So the question is, why commune did not stay as a historical fact, but still alive in a spirit and act to counter capitalism? We can answer this in a very simple way. At least, probably we can say that because capitalism has its internal contradiction, it gives birth to anti-capitalism thinking and movement, with constructing a possibility for another world. And we can see this, for instance, from the two books, illustrate the persistence of anti-capitalist thinkers to offer ways of living outside capitalism. There is a book titled Comment on Revolution in the 21st Century, wrote by Pierre Dardot and Christian Lava. Both are French thinkers. And also another one on the commons and the transformations of post-capitalism, written by Massimo De Angelis. Let's start by Massimo. Professor Massimo De Angelis teaches in the University of East London, and he dedicated most of his life for research on the commons as a social system, the designs, their resilience, sustainability, and strategy of development within the context of multimodal crisis of contemporary neoliberal capitalism. He is a political scientist, but also has a PhD in economics. And according to Professor De Angelis, the commons is a social system. It is formed by commoners who own, produce, reproduce, and sustain collective resources through social relations and relations with the environment. Who are the commoners? The commoners are people within a circle of affect who create relational values among them and use values to their commonwealth for sharing and distributions. These people of commoners doing the activity that can be called as commoning. So commoning is a social doing or social labor to reproduce commons. The commoners construct with friends, the next friend, of friend, and so on, alternative systems and conversations that contribute to shared goals that are averse to that of capital matrix, induced by values that are different from that of capital, a sharing culture, conviviality, and social justice. But we need to bear in mind that commoning as an activity is very situated. We must negotiate its way with the predator capitalist system that tends to enclose the commons. And the commons also needs to negotiate with the state system and ecological system while creating relations with other commons. And where there is a relations between commons and capital, the commons can be inside capitalism or outside of it. But the important thing is the commons operate within the economy of household, not oriented to accumulations, or if we used Aristotle's term, a pragmatistic way of economy. Commoners making money as means, not end, and they are not making money for the sake of accumulating money, but for enable necessary consumptions. Commons not producing communities for accumulations, but for sustenance, that's for sure. And commons not buying for selling, but selling for buying. And not only doing a shared production, but also shared works. So the most important point in the commons in how to ensure the social reproductions of common itself. And the sphere of commons, it is not only in the sphere of ideas, but most importantly, it needs to be practiced. And to understand the reality of the commons, we can visit a website especially dedicated to build commons as a movement strategy. And people behind this digital forum aim to spread the work of commoning globally. So if you visit the Commons website, on thecommons.org, we can see that in this website, Commons is treated as a movement strategy, and it is founded in 2001. And it aims to build and bring visibility to the Commons movement, initiate and catalyze Commons work, and develop and encourage Commons leadership. In its website, we can also learn how Commons manifested in the field. In the Commons website, we can learn the stories about various works of commoning at various forms of commons. So people can imagine what it means to embody commoning in everyday life. And also at some points, commoning also joined force field with social solidarity economy and convening people to share their experiences, thoughts, and build wider audiences through conference, like the one that has already been convened in 2019 in Lisboa, Portugal, Social Solidarity Economy and the Commons in November last year. What about seeing commons in Indonesia, whether we have it or not? One example that I encountered is a form of indigenous community in Papua, Merauke. They call themselves marine people. And we can see that almost every day is a day of commoning for them. They share food, resources, any resources, collective decision-making and strategic or critical issues. The one that I saw or I involved in is how they make the decisions whether or not they will receive a corporation's offer to buy their land. And it was a very difficult decision, and they sat for nights and nights to talk about it together. So this is commons based on large networks of kinship. And there is a very strong customary law that arranges the life of these people. Other example is probably I need to share my own experience to do an experimentation to fulfill a need of housing and co-produce social life with friends and friends of friends. So basically, we consist of several people with different backgrounds. Some are scholar activists, some are activists, lawyers, architects. And we agreed to build this different space for us of living. We try to engage with market in a simple production circuit, making money for sustenance and avoid permanent wage work, collective decision-making on how to develop our small environment. We do our own spatial planning, waste composting, share wells, share infrastructure, roads and electricity. And we agreed that there is no individual land ownership in our parcel of land. And we agreed that there will be no land or house selling, but transfer is allowed only for inheritance. And we also engage with other food growers, farmer, artisans, and our household economy. And lastly, in the future, and this already initiated step by step, we would like to create an alternative form of education for the production of commons. Of course, it is not at all a nice and rosy story, and it is far from ideal. Instead, it is full of everyday struggle to embody consciousness, to walk the talk, and the enemy is not somewhere out there, but our own desires to live individually, to compete and accumulate things that we know too well. But we try our best to keep togetherness by gathering every month and discuss those challenges and find solutions. And through time, we hopefully can learn how to unlearn the values that were inscripted to our body by the capital. Because we truly realize that Massimo De Angelis is correct. The hardest struggle is the value struggle. So, this is going to be the last thought about commune or commoning. What is the way forward? That's probably the biggest question that we have. There is no fixed answers. Nobody can answer this, not even Karl Marx. Creating commons is an effort to make history, a particular history, in which we seek for a working existence of the commune or the commons in our own time space. The commune or commons is not nostalgic romanticism of the past or a hipster lifestyle, but it should be an embodiment of solidarity, a political economy unit with a social ecological unity, a form of value struggle against capital matrix. The commons or commune, therefore, is only able to stand as a counteract of capitalism when it is capable to build a democratic, egalitarian social relations, engaging in elective, rural, urban, sustainable productions and consumptions, construct communal values against capitalism's crimes of individualizations and competition. That's the theory. So in that sense, the commons will vanish when it stands as a noun, but it will live a long life as a verb, commoning, because it is a thread of our everyday life. So hopefully it is a life itself. Thank you. And I'm looking forward for discussions on this topic.